Think you know everything about the Smith Wesson 686? Well, let's put that to the test. Today, I'm diving into 10 facts about this legendary revolver that might just catch you off guard. Some of these are so rare, even die-hard collectors haven't come across them. And trust me, number 10 is going to make you want to check your own 686 if you've got one. Now, we all know the 686 is one of the best revolvers Smith Wesson ever made. It's built like a tank, handles like a dream, and shoots like a laser. It's been around since 1980 and has stood the test of time, proving itself in self-defense, competition shooting, and even law enforcement. But there's a lot more to this wheelgun than meets the eye. Ever heard of a special edition made specifically for US Customs? Or what about an experimental smart gun version? Yeah, that was a thing. And if you're into Hollywood guns, you might be surprised at just how many times the 686 has made an appearance on the big screen. Before we jump in, if you love revolvers as much as I do, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if you own or have ever fired a 686. Alright, enough build-up. Let's get into the first fact. Alright, let's start with something that might surprise new gun owners, but is a game changer if you're a seasoned shooter. The 686 isn't just a .357 Magnum revolver. It also fires .38 Special. That's one of the best things about Magnum revolvers. You get the power of a .357 when you need it, but if you want a softer shooting, more affordable round for practice, .38 Special is the way to go. But here's the kicker. Smith & Wesson actually produced a limited batch of 686 chambered in .38 Super. Now, if you've never seen one in the wild, you're not alone. They're incredibly rare, and they don't pop up often, even in hardcore collector circles. If I ever got my hands on one of those, you'd better believe it would go straight into my safe. So, while most people know about the .357 or .38 compatibility, that elusive .38 Super version is a hidden gem. If you ever come across one, consider yourself lucky. It's a piece of Smith & Wesson history. If you think all 686 are the same, think again. There are 18 different versions of this revolver, with variations in barrel length, grip options, and even rail attachments. You can get a 686 with a 2.5-inch barrel for a compact powerhouse, or go all the way up to a 6-inch barrel for maximum accuracy and velocity. Some versions come with classic wood grips, while others have rubberized grips for better recoil control. And if you're into modern upgrades, certain models even have Picatinny rails, so you can mount optics. Because who wouldn't want to throw a red dot on a revolver, right? That kind of variety means there's a 686 out there for just about every kind of shooter. Whether you want a sleek, concealed carry option or a competition-ready target shooter, there's a model that fits the bill. The best part? Since there are so many variations, it's tough to find two 686 that are exactly the same. If you're a collector, that just makes the hunt even more exciting. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Back in the late 1980s, Smith & Wesson made a special, ultra-rare version of the 686 just for the US Customs Service. This version was called the CS1, Customs Service 1. So what made it different? Well, the CS1 had a few enhancements over the standard 686. It featured a beefed-up frame, special grips for better handling, and a few tweaks to improve durability and function under heavy use. Since these were designed for federal agents, they had to withstand a lot of wear and tear. But here's the problem. Because they were law enforcement issued, very few of them made it into civilian hands. Today, they are some of the most sought-after 686 models out there. If you ever come across a revolver marked CS1, you've basically struck gold in the collector's market. I've personally never had the chance to shoot one, but if I ever found one for sale, you'd better believe I'd be making an offer. It's a piece of history, and in the world of Smith & Wesson revolvers, the CS1 is a true unicorn. Now, let's talk about something that's not so great, a little-known flaw in early production models. If you've got a pre-1987 686, you might want to listen closely. Some of the first 686s had a cylinder binding issue when firing .357 Magnum rounds. Basically, under certain conditions, the cylinder would jam up, making it tough to rotate and fire. Not exactly what you want happening in the middle of a range session, or worse, a defensive situation. Now, to Smith & Wesson's credit, they stepped up fast and issued a recall in 1987. They offered a no-cost upgrade to fix the issue, and any 686 that got this factory upgrade was marked with a small letter M on the frame. So if you're ever in the market for a used 686, check for that M stamp. If it's there, you know it's been factory corrected. If it's missing and the gun is an older model, you might want to take it to a gunsmith or contact Smith & Wesson to see if the upgrade was ever done. This just goes to show that even legendary guns like the 686 have their growing pains, but the fact that S&W stood behind their product and made things right? That's why this revolver has remained one of the most trusted firearms in history. You probably wouldn't expect a revolver to see serious law enforcement or military use these days, but the Smith & Wesson 686 has actually been issued to officers in several countries. It's been used by police forces and military units in the US, France, Norway, and Luxembourg, and there's a specific reason why. The 686 excels in wet environments, making it a solid choice for maritime and law enforcement operations. The stainless steel construction holds up incredibly well against moisture, reducing the risk of rust and corrosion. That's why it was a popular choice for units working near water, whether that was coastal police departments, military divers, or customs agents dealing with drug interdiction at sea. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why would modern agencies use a 6-shot revolver when they could carry a semi-auto with double the capacity? Well, in some situations, reliability is king. A revolver like the 686 doesn't jam, doesn't require a magazine, and fires some of the most potent handgun rounds available. That's a trade-off some departments were willing to make. It's just another reason why this revolver has earned its reputation as one of the most trusted, battle-tested handguns ever made. If the 686 looks familiar to you, it might not just be from the gun store or the range. This revolver is a Hollywood star and has made appearances in over 76 movies and 20 TV shows. It's been in everything from action blockbusters to crime dramas, and if you're a fan of classic gun flicks, you've probably seen it more than once. Let's talk about some of its most famous appearances. One of the biggest is Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson's character, Martin Riggs, carried a 686, and that movie alone helped make this gun a pop culture icon. Fast forward to modern-day action, and yep, the 686 pops up in John Wick 2. Because of course, John Wick has fired one. What gun hasn't he used at this point? TV shows love the 686 as well. If you've ever watched Breaking Bad, you might remember that Walter White himself handled one. And on CSI, you'll spot it in the hands of law enforcement and criminals alike. So why is the 686 so popular in movies? First, it looks amazing on camera. That stainless steel frame catches the light perfectly. Second, it's got that classic detective revolver aesthetic that just screams authority. Hollywood loves this gun, and honestly, I don't blame them. Now, here's something that's straight out of science fiction. Did you know that Smith & Wesson actually experimented with a smart gun version of the 686? Yep, back in 2000, they worked on a model that included fingerprint recognition technology, meaning it could only be fired by an authorized user. So, why don't we see these smart 686 in gun stores today? Well, this all started when Smith & Wesson made a deal with the Clinton administration, agreeing to implement certain gun control measures in exchange for preferred government contracts. This included testing out smart gun features that would prevent unauthorized use. But here's the thing. Gun owners hated it. There was immediate backlash, and it triggered a massive boycott against Smith & Wesson. Gun shops, distributors, and buyers across the country stopped purchasing S&W products in protest. The financial hit was so bad that the company quickly backed out of the deal, scrapping all smart gun development. It's crazy to think there might be a few experimental, fingerprint-scanning 686 sitting in a Smith & Wesson vault somewhere. If one ever surfaced, I'd love to see how it actually functioned. But given how poorly smart gun tech has been received, I doubt we'll see anything like that on the market anytime soon. Now, if you're a fan of the 686 but prefer something with a little more classic styling, then you need to know about the Smith & Wesson 586. This is basically the exact same revolver, but instead of a stainless steel frame, the 586 comes in blued steel. Mechanically, the two guns are identical. Same L frame, same .357 Magnum firepower, same accuracy and reliability. But the finish makes a world of difference, especially for those who love the look of deep, polished blue steel. Some shooters actually prefer the 586 for a few reasons. First, it has a slightly heavier feel due to the carbon steel frame, which some argue helps with recoil control. Second, blued finishes have that old-school, traditional look that just screams classic revolver. If you're someone who loves vintage wheelguns, the 586 might be more your speed. Personally, I love the stainless durability of the 686, but I won't lie, the 586 is one beautiful revolver. If you're looking for a revolver that stands out but still delivers that same legendary performance, the 586 is a great alternative. And if you're lucky enough to own both, well, you've got the best of both worlds. If you've ever shot a 686, you already know this thing is scary accurate. But did you know that experienced shooters have consistently reported sub-1-inch groups at 25 yards? That kind of precision is insane for a production revolver. Now, obviously, that level of accuracy depends on the shooter, the ammo, and a steady trigger pull, but the design of the 686 plays a huge role. The L-frame absorbs recoil beautifully, allowing for smooth, controlled follow-up shots. The weight of the gun keeps it steady in the hand, and the longer-barreled models give you a sight radius that makes precise aiming almost effortless. Match this revolver with some quality .357 Magnum ammo, and you've got a tack-driving handgun that can easily outshoot many semi-autos at the same distance. I've heard stories of people getting rifle-level accuracy with a well-tuned 686. That's part of why so many competitive shooters and law enforcement officers swear by it. If you ever want to test just how good your revolver shooting is, grab a 686, set up a target at 25 yards, and see if you can keep your shots inside an inch. If you can pull it off, you're handling one of the most accurate production revolvers ever made. Now, this is something a lot of 686 owners don't even realize. The little dash in your model number? That actually tells a story about the history and upgrades of this revolver. If you own a 686, go check the model number. If there's a dash followed by a number, that number represents a specific design change. The original 686, made in 1980, didn't have any dash. It was the base model, but in 1986, Smith Wesson made a few internal tweaks, adding a radius stud package and a floating hand, and that's when we got the 686-1. In 1987, they changed the hammer nose and bushings, leading to the 687-186-2. Then, in 1988, the New York retention system was introduced, and that marked the 686-3. Fast forward to 1993, and the 686-4 came with a drilled and tapped frame for optics, a revised extractor, and the now standard Hogue rubber grips. Then, in 1997, they made some big changes. They eliminated the cylinder stop stud, introduced metal injection molded MIM parts, and switched to a floating firing pin. That was the 686-5. And then, in 2001, they added something that remains controversial to this day, the internal lock. That's the 686-6, and it's still the current production model today. So if you own a 686, now you know exactly what those numbers mean. And if you're shopping for one, you can use this info to track down the exact model you want based on the features you prefer. And there you have it, 10 things you probably didn't know about the Smith & Wesson 686. This revolver is an absolute legend, and it's got the history, the performance, and the fan base to prove it. Whether you're a longtime 686 owner or you're just learning about it now, I hope you found something new and interesting in this list. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. As always, I appreciate you watching.